Hello students, on continuation with the last class, we will be continuing this lecture. Let's start with the numerical with the concept that we have already studied it in the last class. So the question says that there is a copper coil which has a resistance of 20 ohm at 0 degree centigrade, and the same resistance is having the same coil is having a resistance of 26.4 ohm at 80 degrees centigrade. We are required to find out the temperature coefficient. We are required to find out the temperature coefficient or alpha for this copper coil. So let us solve it. As we know that the variation of resistance with the temperature is regarded as RT equal to R naught into 1 plus alpha del T. Del T is the change in the temperature. As we know that this del T is going to be T final minus T 0 degree. So here it is going to be 80. So we can find it out. It's a very simple one. This is 26.4, that is equal to 20 into 1 plus alpha into 80. So as we know, we can write it like 26.4. This can be written as 26.4 equal to 20 plus alpha into 1600, and this one is 6.4 equal to alpha into 1600. So alpha equal to 6.4 divided by 1600. So which is equal to 4 into 10 to the power minus 3, which is very, very small. That is per degree centigrade. So this is the answer to our question. Okay. So I will include few of the question in the discussion session, and I'll give you some practice question on this. So let us continue with the circuit analysis. Let us continue with the circuit analysis. But before getting into the circuit analysis, we should know that what are the circuit elements that form a complete circuit. In your junior classes, you must have studied that some of the basic circuit elements are there which constitute a circuit. You know that for completing a circuit, there are two basic elements are required. One is a battery and the one is a external resistance. The battery has or EMF, or it is written as capital E or small, it depends on the fact. We have already studied it in the chapter of capacitor. Okay, so these are the two circuit elements, and this one is resistance we have already studied about, and this is a battery, and the battery is the one which is a device which continuously supply energy to the flow of current in the electrical circuit. It continuously supply energy to the charges to flow, and so that the current is constituted. So we can write down. So here we are going to study about a very important concept that is called as electromotive force. Electromotive force. So it's not, this is written as EMF or the electromotive force. Right. You know that battery or external supply is any device which can continuously supply energy, any device which can continuously supply energy to flow current in electrical circuit, to flow current in electrical circuit. And this is called as EMF. And what is the function of a battery? Battery, it transfers energy from non-electrical form into the electrical form. It transforms energy from, and why should it transfer the energy? This energy is transferred for the motion of free electrons, for the motion of free electrons that we have already discussed of motion for of free electrons. So this transfers energy from non-electrical source or non-electrical form to electrical form. We can take the example of it in the next sheet. So though its name is EMF, but it is not a force, it is an energy. So in the next, on the continuation of it, let us understand a basic circuit analysis, or how the battery helps for the flow of charges and it constitutes currents, or it is an aid for the constitution of the current. Let us take an example. This is a bucket. Let me draw a bucket over here, which is going to be, or a container in which we are going to fill H2SO4 solution or aqueous. Okay, so this is our bucket which is filled with, okay, I'm going to take 2 bars over here. So this is, so here the chemical energy is getting converted in the form of electrical energy. Here the chemical energy is going to get converted in the form of electrical energy. So we are understanding that how the chemical energy is getting converted in the form of electrical energy over here. Okay, so this one is completely filled with H2SO4 solution. So I'm going to take 2 bars over here. Approximately. Okay, well, so let me put that what are they, who all are they. So then after that we can start discussing about this one. So this one is H2SO4 solution, this one is H2SO4 solution. So this is lead dioxide, this one is lead dioxide, and this is a lead battery. So this one is only lead and this is lead dioxide. What exactly happens over here? You know that this is the aqueous solution of sulfuric acid, or we can say that the energy released by the chemical reaction is equal to the energy released by the battery. Here we can say that the energy released by the chemical reaction is equal to the energy released by the battery. Let us see that how the charges get accumulated to create the potential difference. How the charges are accumulated to create the potential difference. Let's understand it. You know that whenever this H2SO4 solution dissociates, it forms 2 hydrogen ions. So 2 hydrogen ions are getting formed. Along with that, we get 1 sulfate ion. Along with that we get 1 sulfate ion, SO4 2 minus. So what happens? This H plus, so the one which is getting formed, I'm going to show it in the different color over here itself. So this is H plus and H plus. So this H plus, it receives electrons from the lead dioxide plates. They will try to receive the electrons from the lead dioxide plate. So they will go here and they will receive electrons from the lead dioxide plate. So at the same time, SO4 2 minus is also formed, or your sulfate ion is formed. So when they receives electron from the lead dioxide, so what happens? They will form nascent hydrogen atoms. They will form nascent hydrogen atoms. These nascent hydrogen atoms are highly reactive and they react with lead dioxide. And they react with lead dioxide. they react with this, they form nascent hydrogen atom which are very reactive, and they react with lead dioxide. And when they react with dioxide, so this chemical reaction tells you that lead dioxide plus 2H, they will form PbO, or the lead oxide, plus 1 water. So this is an intermediate, actually this is an intermediate, that means it is again ready for another reaction. So with which it is going to react? So this lead oxide is an intermediate, hence further reaction will take place. So this lead oxide PbO is going to combine with H2SO4, and again it is going to form PbSO4 plus water, right? So now what will happen with the story of SO4 2 minus? Let's understand that what exactly is going to happen with SO4 2 minus. Okay, so let's see that what happens with SO4 2 minus. So I'm going to write it down in another page. Now in the same time, it donates electrons to the lead plate. SO4 2 minus donates electron to the SO4 2 minus, or sulfate ion donates electrons to lead plate. Okay. So this, see, after donating the electrons to the lead plate, it will become radical sulfate. Now it is going to get converted into the form of radical sulfate. You know, radical sulfate is highly reactive. Radical sulfate is highly reactive. If it is highly reactive, then it reacts with lead. SO4 reacts with lead and make lead sulfate and make lead sulfate. So as a result, this process is not perpetual, but it will continue for a longer time, and as a result, after some time we'll find that the left side of the plate is going to be accumulated with the positive charge by donating its electrons to the the formation of nascent hydrogen atom, while the right side of the plates are going to be accumulated with the negative charge that has been received by sulfate ion. So this is the way how the charges accumulates, and hence the potential difference is created. So that's where you find that this side of the plate is going to get high potential, and this is going to get a lower potential. So this is the way how we will be getting a potential difference will be created. Now what will happen? The potential difference increases continuously, but at a point it has increased to such an extent that it has become highly positive. So even though the H plus is getting created, but now this H plus is not able to reach to the left plate, rather it is going to be repelled by the left side of the plate. It is going to be repelled. Similarly, even though the sulfate ions has been formed, but still it is going to be repelled by the right side of the plate. And the same story repeats with the sulfate ion as well as the hydrogen ion. Now the potential difference becomes constant. After some time we find that the potential difference that has been formed between the two plates of the battery becomes constant. Potential difference becomes constant, and this is called as EMF of the battery, and this is called as the EMF of the battery. Now as the current flow, let us take an example. I'm going to connect the whole circuit. This one was your S2SO4 and these plates were there, right? Now after this point, if I am going to connect the whole circuit to an external resistance, if the whole circuit is connected to an external resistance, now this is 0 volt, this one is E volt or V volt, and this is resistance. Now the current will start to flow, as we already know this. As the current will start to flow, right, so the potential again start to decrease. Now after the current flows, after the current flows, the potential start to decrease. Potential difference again start to decrease. If the potential difference start to decrease, again the reaction will start to resume. Now the reaction resumes. Reaction inside the chemical, or the chemical reaction resumes. Again, and the potential difference is maintained. Resumes and the potential difference is maintained. So that's why battery is used to maintain the potential difference. That means to maintain the energy supply for the movement of the charges, right? So we can find there are two processes are continuing. One is the current flow plus the swimming of the ions. There are two processes are continuing at the same time. One is the current flow and the swimming of the ions from the solution to the negative and the positive plates to the two different plates. So, but we found that, see, this E is directly proportional to, or the EMF is directly proportional to the current over here. The EMF, so this is the mechanism that how a battery functions and who supplies energy to the whole circuit, right? Okay, now the thing is that if I'm going to, here we are going to study about one more concept, that is the concept of internal resistance. That is the concept of internal resistance of a battery, right? But we are studying physics, so we do not have to like do that everything that we have to write over here about that all the chemical reactions and all. Rather, we are going to study about that how a battery functions, I mean physically in a circuit, like how it is supplying current to the supply. So here we are going to study about the internal resistance of a battery, internal resistance of a battery. And what is the meaning of internal resistance of a battery, and what are the symbol of a battery, and how this internal resistance functions, and how does it affect the function of a battery. So batteries transfers chemical energy to the electrical energy. So if I'm saying that what is the meaning of internal resistance, these are the two terminals, let it be. These are the two terminals of the battery. This one is positive terminal and this is the negative terminal. Now the inside it, you know that it is filled up with chemicals. It is filled up with chemicals, right? So this is actually a very small amount of resistance that is offered by the chemical composition of the battery. This is represented as small r. This resistance is represented as small r, while the load resistance or the external resistance is represented by capital R. So the small r is the resistance offered by, it is the resistance offered the chemicals, by the chemical composition, by the chemical composition of the battery, right? So how does it affect it and how it is represented in, you know that if you draw a symbol of a battery, all of us know that how a battery is represented, it should be represented like this. So battery is going to be divided into broadly two types. Now one is an ideal battery, which is not having, if I write that a battery, a kind of battery which is called as an ideal battery, so in that case it has only EMF and the internal resistance of the cell is equal to 0. Okay, and if a battery is having an internal resistance, so either it can be represented like this, or you'll be finding the battery is represented with E comma R. So let's take an example. If it is written as 10 volt comma 1 ohm, so what is the meaning of it? This 1 ohm is the internal resistance of the battery, right? So this kind of battery is also called as a real battery. This is a real battery. This is a real battery. And you know that this internal resistance is always connected, it is always connected in series with the battery EMF, always connected in series with the battery EMF, with battery EMF. So what is its effect on the calculation of the potential difference? If I say that, let's take an example. We know a very basic form of Kirchhoff's law in our junior classes as well as in the last chapter also. If I say that this one is a 10 volt battery and we have a resistance of 2 ohm and the current supplied by the battery is, let it be I. So we can directly write down I is equal to 10 by 2. So that is equal to 5 ampere. But if I say that this battery is not an ideal battery, rather it is a real battery and it has some internal resistance of 0.5 ohm. So this is 0.5 ohm. Now this one is 10 volt. So we can clearly see that these two resistances are connected in series with each other. So now the equivalent resistance of the circuit is going to become 2.5 ohm. So the current in the circuit, now it is going to be I dash, and IDES is equal to 10 by 2.5, that is equal to 4 ampere. So we can clearly see that 5 ampere is greater than 4 ampere. So there is a reduction in the current, and why it is coming down? Because of the presence of internal resistance, because of the presence of internal resistance. So internal resistance reduces the function of or the efficiency of the battery, right? So how does it affect the potential drop across a battery also, and what does it call it as? Let's understand it. So here we are going to study about a term that is called as terminal potential difference. Terminal potential difference. So what is the meaning of it? So the next thing is terminal potential difference. And we will be studying about the different cases of terminal potential difference as well. So the case one that we are going to study over here is, okay. So case one is when no current is flowing through the battery. Current through the battery is equal to 0. So in that case, if I draw a battery, even though it has internal resistance, let it be having an EMF of R. So there are two terminals, it has X and Y. No current is flowing through the battery. So I is equal to 0. So we can write down, if you move from X to Y, you already know that how to write it down. You can write Bx, and now we are traversing the battery, and as we are moving from positive end to negative end, it is going to be minus E is equal to Vy. Because as no current is flowing through, so we are not going to include this one because no potential drop is there across the resistance, and you know that potential drop across the resistance is IR. So Vx minus E equal to Vy. So we can write Vx minus Vy is equal to E. So these are the two terminals of the battery, because it should include the internal resistance, because internal resistance is the resistance that has been offered by the chemical. It is not outside the battery. So that's why this is called as terminal potential difference. So this is the case when the terminal potential difference is equal to the EMF of the battery. Second case we are going to discuss here is when a current is supplied by the battery. That means battery discharging. We can write battery discharging. Battery is discharging. You put your mobile iPhone in use, that means battery is discharging. So in that case, current is supplied by the battery. Battery is something that, like, if some amount of current is going from the battery, it should again come back to the battery, right? So it should not get lost. Like it should be I, so and again it should enter through this path. So we are finding out the terminal potential difference. Now we can write Vx. Now we are moving from positive to negative. So we'll be writing minus of E. Now we are traversing opposite to the direction of the current flow. Opposite to the direction of current flow. You can see current is going from right to left. So if we'll go from left to right, so the potential drop is going to be added of us plus IR, and now we have reached to the terminal Y. So we can write here Vx minus By is equal to E minus IR. So now in this case, the terminal potential difference is E minus IR. So third case is battery is charging. Battery is charging. Charging means we can say that current is supplied to the battery. Current is supplied to the battery. Current is supplied into the battery. Battery is charging. This condition is also called as battery is charging. So who is supplying the current to the battery? Some external power supply. You put it your mobile in the charging mode. So in this case, the battery does charge. So that means current should enter into the battery. So in that case, we do write here Y and this is X. So we can write Vx. Now we are moving from positive to negative, same, it is By, but this time the current is entering. So we are moving along the direction of the current, so we are going to write it as Vx minus, E minus of IR should be equal to Vy. So we can write down Vx minus Vy is equal to E plus IR. So can we see that in the three different cases? In the first case, the terminal potential difference is equal to the EMF. In the second case, the terminal potential difference is less than the EMF because some potential is getting lost due to the presence of internal resistance. In the third case, we got it is more than the EMF because some external supply is supplying energy, or sorry, supplying current to the circuit. Now, let us continue with the grouping of resistances, as we have already studied about the basic composition of a basic circuit, and we do find a single resistance over here. But if we say that just like the group of capacitors we have already studied over there, we say that there are many number of resistors are there. So in that case, how to group the resistances? We have already studied about all these things in our junior classes. Just I am taking a quick revision, and then after that I will solve a separate set of questions. Resistance combination. So its effect remains intact, but we have to make the circuit for the computational easiness or for easiness. So resistance combination is of two types here. Again, I'm going to divide it here. One is series combination and the second one is parallel combination. If I say that, let us discuss about the series combination first. I'm taking three resistances, R1, R2 and R3. As we connect it to a supply voltage, let it be having a supply voltage of V, so the current will start to flow. Now you know that all these resistors are going to receive the same amount of current. So the potential difference across R1 is going to be I into R1 V1, and here it is V2, and in this case it is V3. As we know that V should be equal to V1 plus V2 plus V3, and V can be written as I multiplied with R equivalent is equal to IR1 plus IR2 plus IR3. So all these three resistors can be replaced as a single one, and its value is R1 plus R2 plus R3. So this is a voltage divider circuit. This is a voltage divider circuit. It's quite easy. And the second one is parallel combination. What happens in the parallel combination? As we know that, let's take an example. All these three resistors are going to be connected in parallel to each other. How do you identify that whether it is a parallel combination or a series combination? As we know that if these three ends are connected together, so and the current is getting divided, so in that case we call it as parallel combination. So if I'm going to put it across a battery, so in that case the battery is going to supply some amount of current. So this current is supplied due to the, so this is R equivalent. So how to find out the value of R equivalent? So here it is I1, this is I2, this is I3. We have already studied about the nodal analysis. So this point is having a potential of 0 volt and this has a potential of V volt. We can see that all the batteries are connected in parallel to each other. That means the potential difference across them is same. So here this kind of circuit is a current divider circuit. Current divider circuit. So we can say that I is equal to I1 plus I2 plus I3, and I can be written as V divided by R equivalent is equal to V by R1 plus V by R2 plus V by R3. So we can write 1 by R equivalent is equal to 1 by R1 plus 1 by R2 plus 1 by R3. But the most important part of parallel combination is that if many number of resistances are connected in parallel to each other, if I say that all the resistances are of equal values, we know that we can get the total resistances or the equivalent resistance. If I say that if I'm going to connect n number of resistances in parallel with each other, so R equivalent can directly be written as R by N. It should be R by N. If I say that there are 10 resistances, each of value 2 ohm are connected in parallel. So what should be its equivalent resistance? It is 2 by 10, that is 0.2. And one more important thing is that if I say that there are two resistances, quickly how to do few of the questions quite quickly. We can do it that if I say that there are two resistances, I'm just taking it as an example. If I say there are two resistances which are in parallel to each other, so how instantly let's solve it? As we know that this is R1 and this is R2. So R equivalent is R1 R2 divided by R1 plus R2. If I say that this is example 2 ohm, 4 ohm and 6 ohm. So how to solve it quickly? Let's pair up this 2 and 2 first. So it is going to give you 2 into 4 divided by 2 plus 4. So how much it is coming? 8 by 6. 8 by 6 is 4 by 3 ohm. Now this 4 by 3 ohm is in parallel with 6 ohm. So we can write here like 4 by 3 and here it is 6. You have already studied about this thing, so that's why I'm doing it quickly. So what is the equivalent resistance of the circuit now? 4 by 3 into 6 divided by 4 by 3 plus 6. So this is the way how we can quickly solve the circuit. Another thing is that current divider rule. How the current gets divided in the resistances when they are connected in parallel with each other. Actually, as we know that the potential difference across them are equal, so let the current is I and this is R1 and R2. Anyways, the current has to be divided in such a way that the potential difference across them should be maintained, right? And they must be equal to each other. So we can write down I1 R1 must be equal to I2 R2. I1 R1 must be equal to I2 R2. And as we know that I should be equal to I1 plus I2. So can't we replace this I2 as I minus I1? Yes. So we can write here I1 R1 should be equal to I minus I1 into R2. So we can write I1 R1 should be equal to I R2 minus I1 R2. So let's bring all the I1 together. It is going to be I1 into R1 plus R2 equal to I R2. So from this we get the value of I1 as I is the total current divided by R2 divided by R1 plus R2. Can you see one thing? If I am calculating the value of I1, I am using R2 in the numerator. So what is I1? I1 is the current that is flowing in the R1, but here in the numerator I am using R2. So similarly, if we wish to find out I2, so we can write I2 is equal to I R1 divided by R1 plus R2. So this is called as current divider rule. This is called as current divider rule. So I'll be continuing with the many number of numericals in the next part of the discussion.